It is a beautiful, though chilly, Tuesday morning, the 18th of June 2024, and the time is exactly 2 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock. Greetings, land of the brave and beyond, and a very warm welcome to today's Public Enterprises Information Sharing session. As always, we are coming to you live and direct from the Government Information Center studios in the heart of the nation's capital, Windhoek. Thank you so much for tuning in. For this morning's edition, I will be your host, Heleni Felepo-Samunyela, and alongside my studio guests, we'll be keeping you company between now and 11 o'clock. On the menu this morning, we are discussing Namibia's quest for the green economy, and I am joined in the studio by the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of the Namibian Agronomic Board, Dr. Fidelis Mwazi. Dr. Mwazi, once again, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board this morning. Welcome to the GIC.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me to the Information Center.
Thank you so much. Now, Doctor, we are going to kick off this conversation very fast. First things first, please talk to us about who the Namibian Agronomic Board is and what necessitated the establishment thereof, as well as whilst at it, maybe you can just also run us through the mandate of the organization.
Thank you very much. The Namibian Agronomic Board is established under the Act of Parliament, which is Act 20 of 1992. In fact, the board itself, I think, started in 1985. And then after independence, then it was re-established or re-gazetted through the Act of Parliament of the Agronomic Industry Act.
Okay.
Now, I think what necessitated this, it's more to provide an oversight and assist government in terms of providing regulatory services and marketing of different crop products within Namibia. Now, its mandate, as established under the Act, is to promote the agronomic industry and to facilitate production, processing, storage, and marketing of controlled crops. So this is more the critical aspect of it in terms of now driving both regulatory services and the developmental part of the crop industry in Namibia.
All right. Now, Doctor, the Namibian Agronomic Board has two thematic areas outlined in the Integrated Strategic Business Plan for 2020 and 2021 to 2024 and 2025. Pardon me, namely the regulatory framework and to agronomy, horticulture development that you perform in relation to your mandates. Could you kindly give us an overview of what that entails in a broader perspective?
Thank you very much. I will start by saying I think after we relooked or re-engineered in terms of our mandate, we re-engineered and developed the Integrated Strategic Business Plan. Then we crafted the different thematic areas of our mandate, but then aligned it to our vision, which is our vision is to be a world-class regulator of a vibrant, diversified, and sustainable crop industry. Now, we needed to think within that line and say, how are we going to achieve this vision by coming up with these two critical thematic areas? Now, when we look at regulatory services, these are more the steps that we need to take in terms of developing a responsive regulatory framework or rules and regulation that assist us to advance the regulatory aspect and drive the compliance aspect of the crop industry. So out of that, we have two more areas as well to say we are driving more the aspect of food safety and standards that we need to ensure that what comes on the table is fit for human consumption,
right,
and it complies to different standards. Now, the other aspect of that is also border control or border management, in which we needed to have different inspectors at all our port of entry and exit, so that we can able to control and see what comes out or what comes in the country, what goes out, what in transit, so that we provide the required permits as such.
Okay.
Now, when we move to the other thematic area, which is agronomy and horticulture development, is one of our critical as well because of the market facilitation arm and developmental arm. So out of that, we splitted it also to be specific, to say we have agronomy development part, which we look at grains, value chain and development, where we issue permits to those who are importing grains. We also monitor what is produced local in terms of grain, which is more white maize, peel millet, and wheat.
Right.
And then we have horticulture development, which is also more or less similar to say we needed to. That's where we are monitoring the market facilitation, where we need to understand what is produced local, what are we importing. We issue permits to those who are involved in terms of trading and processing and so on. Then the other key aspect is that we have research and development under that, which allows us at least to perform or to conduct different research trials so that we can able to understand which different crops, varieties, or cultivars that are adaptable within our environment. So these two thematic areas are the critical one as we drive the implementation of the Agronomic Industry Act.
Okay. Now, the discussion for this morning is centered around Namibia's quest to a green economy. Why that? Why exactly are we? Why is that quest there for Namibia's green economy? What exactly are we referring to?
The Namibia's quest for a green economy, I think, we came up with that as part of our drive for the implementation of our integrated strategic business plan. And then also in terms of the developmental arm, that what is it that we aspire to see in the crop industry in the next 5 to 10 years. So you will notice that I think when you look at the aspect within the Namibian economy, recently we talk about the discovery of oil and gas, the green hydrogen, and so on. But I think from the Namibian Agronomic Board's perspective, we say, as much as we would like to develop these other industries and depend on that, the key one is also food security.
Right.
So, but the question comes in to say, how are we going to develop this? So the quest for a green economy comes within the line to say, whatever we do in the crop industry needs to be environmental sound. It needs to be economic growth, because we would like to see the crop sector contributing much to the gross domestic product or the GDP. And then at the same time, it should be socially justice or socially uplifting the well-being of the society. I think it's a broader topic. We can unpack it as we go.
It is.
Yes, because it's aligned to, we have the market share promotion scheme that we normally implement. But I think we need to understand now to say the quest for a green economy is also attached to say how far are we in terms of what we are producing local, and then what are we importing, what are we exporting. So that means if we are to drive to ensure that we are contributing significantly to the GDP and the economy, it means that we need to assess and understand what are we producing in terms of our local grains or agronomy in terms of self-sufficiency. Now you will notice that we are almost on average we are consuming around 170 or 78,000 metric tons of white maize as an example. Now out of that, almost you will say 52% becomes like locally produced in good rainfall season. And then that will be equivalent to say we are producing almost around 98, I think the highest we have produced as a country is 98,000 metric tons of white maize. Now that is translated to, if we use the 5 average of the last 5 average of the white maize production locally, it translates to 52% of our own total demand or consumption has been produced local. But it's not the same when we are faced with a drought situation like now.
Exactly.
Now, the difference of 52% or the difference of what we are importing, we still have a window open for investment opportunity to increase local production. That means when we do that, we would like it to be within the concept of the green economy. It has to be economical, bringing economical growth all sound. It has to be environmental friendly. It has to be social uplifting and looking after the well-being of not only the workers, but the surrounding communities as well by providing different services.
Okay.
So similarly, it's a similar example we can give also to the horticulture industry, and then we have seen much significant growth out of that. But then I think we can take advantage of growing more local horticultural produce.
Indeed.
That will even create more employment, and also always refer to it to say the crop sector or agriculture in general employs almost everyone, every different discipline and fields. So that means if we grow this green economy, the job that is required will be created in various aspects.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Doctor, speaking of which, the NAB has been implementing the market share promotion scheme. You've slightly touched on it, but I would like you to dig deeper a bit now. It's popularly known as the MSP, as well as closed border period for grain over the years. What are the success stories, some of the success stories that such scheme has, come about, and how far are we with the scheme?
Thank you very much. The market share promotion scheme is one of our in terms of our drive over the years. I think when it started, the aim was to say, how do we use, or what mechanism or tool do we need to put in place to drive the growth and the growth of the horticultural products locally. And then the MSP came in around 2002, 2003. And when we started with that, it was almost 2%, 2.5%, 5%, to say when you are a trader of horticultural produce, you are required to buy at least that 5% local before you are given a permit to import. And that was more to drive, to assist, to say our local produce coming from our local producers need to have access to the market and claim a share on the total demand of what we are consuming. Now, as we speak now, the market share promotion has grown from that 5%, we are at 47% in terms of the threshold. But what we have assessed is that the actual MSP that we normally get, I think on average the last financial year was 41%, which is, we are still below the threshold. Yeah. So what it entails is that it means over these years we have increased local production of different products. So I think we have seen significant increase in the production of onions, the production of potatoes, and the production of butternuts, sweet potatoes, and so on. So that is already a success story that we say this scheme has yielded the results that we anticipated from the beginning. But why is it not growing at the pace that we desire? We have already also assessed it and realized that there are certain products within that is playing a significant, like for example, potato. Potato contributes very significant on the MSP. So now, for us to be able to increase it from 47 to go to the desired, we are looking to say we need to be at 60-70% of market share promotion scheme. It means we need to invest more into potato production and have that share on that. So this brought us, as to say, as the market share promotion were going up and up, we realized that we needed to come up with another part of the scheme inside the market share promotion scheme. That's when we came up with the special controlled crops where we normally close the border and open the border. When we have sufficient, we close the border, then we open it when we would like to bring in.
I was just about, sorry to interject there, Doctor, I was just about to mention, quite often we hear that the borders are closed for certain crops, such as now, let's say, your onions or your potatoes or your whatever. Could this be what Doctor is referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's aligned to the market share promotion scheme. So, but we just elevated it to a special controlled crops.
Okay.
We have 20 lines of crops that we are under the special controlled crops.
Okay.
The reason is that when we produce more than what we can able to consume, we always provide production forecast over the next 5 months on a regular basis. Then we check on what is our average consumption demand per month. Then when we realize that this is higher, what we are expected to produce is higher than what is our average demand, then we say we will close the border to allow traders and consumers to buy local before we can able to open the border.
Right.
So that's how this special controlled crops is we are able to implement its operation. Now, under the MSP scheme, it also brought us to say, when we reached that stage where we needed to close the border, then traders brought up other aspect of say, but what about the quality? What
Right.
about the food safety?
Right.
So this is what brings us now to say, out of these 20 lines that we are under the special controlled crops, we also brought in the development of crop-specific marketing standards together with NSI, because then we needed also to manage this to say, we do not want a situation where products that are produced local are said are inferior in terms of quality, and the safety nets of it is not known. So we brought in the standards, we developed the standard and say, whatever is produced local needs to be aligned or in compliance with these different standards. So now that is to enhance that we are enabling the environment that these crops should be able to have access to the market, same equal as imports that we are bringing from outside.
Okay.
So these are success stories that we can proudly say is, I think we have been developing, we have done better, but I think we can still do more. That's where now the green economy, the quest for a green economy comes in, because we need to come up with these and also carry up and enhance until we reach to the desired target and goal of the crop industry aspect.
Okay, Doctor. Deducing from your response just now, I couldn't help but think at the back of my mind, in terms of crops that GMO, should I say oriented, if for lack of a better word,
Yes.
what mitigating factors are in place to ensure that this food is, these crops are indeed on the standard, but also not, a health hazard for the consumers? What mitigating factors are in place to ensure that, I'm sure you mentioned just now that you work in hand with NSI, is it Namibia
Standard Institution?
Yes. If you can please just elaborate a little bit more on that.
So the issue of GMO, it's regulated within, I think, the National Research Commission on Science and Technology.
Okay.
Is NCRIST is mandated to regulate that through the Biosafety Act and so on. So we signed an MOU with them. I think we still need to operationalize that aspect of the implementation of the MOU, whereby we could perhaps at the port of entry and the local production, we could have this rapid test and monitoring of the GMO. But for now, all I can say is that I think there are some regulation that is governing that under the organization, which is NCRIST's mandate. But I think from our side, when we are implementing this standard, we are testing for, in terms of looking to say, the content of chemicals in this produce. As you know, in agriculture, we use different chemicals and pests, pesticides that is being applied and so on. So when we are testing these crops, we would like to see whether the level of content of these chemicals are below the threshold that is required for the maximum residue level.
Right.
So now within that, that's where when we take samples, we send them to the laboratory, then we see the results, then we match, and then we interact with the producers or farmers to say, your use of chemicals seems to be far away or beyond because we are detecting these contents of chemicals or residues in the products that is coming from you.
Okay.
So,
but, sorry, Doctor, just another follow-up question whilst at it. In other words, we are saying that we locally we are producing crops that are genetically modified.
that one is difficult to say, but I think at the moment it's not been registered, especially I think from the different crops, it's not been registered that they are genetically modified. Okay. They could be, but I'm speaking under correction.
All right.
Because NSI, I think, we're still to, not NSI, but NCRIS, which is the Research Commission, where I think as part of their mandate, they're supposed to be conducting these assessments in the field, because anyone who is supposed to be producing GMO, supposed to be applying to NCRIST and getting that kind of approval, and then operate within the guideline that is provided under the provision of the Biosafety Act.
Right.
So at this stage, I'm not aware much about that.
Okay.
So I can't comment more.
All right. Please go ahead with your
So the one I was referring to with regard to the issue of food safety when we do this sampling and analysis is that when we are monitoring this, we also require that producers need to implement the local GAP or good agriculture practices, that where you are storing your fertilizers, how you are handling your chemicals, how you are handling all these pesticides. You need to have records on that. So our inspectors always regularly goes in the field and engage in terms of inspection services to do compliance and monitor that and take samples. So that is already kind of a guarantee to say when someone is implementing good agriculture practices, you are more guaranteed that you are handling your chemicals, fertilizers, and pesticide, and the spraying program should be within the period as required. So in principles, when you apply chemicals or fertilizers and all these pesticides, there's a withdrawal period that you need to observe before you can harvest products for the market. Okay. So now from our side, it's more an assurance and compliance part. We take samples just to double check that indeed the level of contents of these are in compliance within the limits as required.
All right.
Yes.
Now, Namibia, you are still tuned into the government communications. Pardon me, you are still tuned into the discussion here. Today we are discussing Namibia's case for green economy, and I am joined in the studio by the Dr. Fidelis Mwazi. He's the CEO of the Namibian Agronomic Board. Please join us. We will be happy to have you on board. Now, Doctor, what are the expectations of the grain harvesting considering the drought that has been declared this year? And what could we import to meet the demands for total consumption? What is NAB's, what is the Namibia Agronomic Board doing about the drought situation in the country?
Thank you very much. I think that's a critical question, especially taking into consideration that we are in a drought situation. Now, as I mentioned earlier, to say our total average over the last 5 years in terms of our total demand or consumption, it stands at around 178,000 metric tons. Now, out of that, I mentioned also to say 52% is almost locally produced, which is equivalent to, in the good rainfall years, the highest we produced was around 98,000 metric tons. Now, in the current situation, based on the issue of droughts that we have experienced that has impacted more on our local production, we are only expecting around 33,000 metric tons. So 33,000 metric tons is almost 18% of our total demand. So that means equivalent, if we are to use the last 5 years average, it means 145,000 metric tons still needs to be brought out from outside as imports to meet our average demand in terms of white maize. So that is very significant. I think if you look at that aspect, it means equivalent also. If you look at that, it's almost like we need to spend $1 billion Namibian dollars will be spent out of purchasing these, because the current average price of white maize per ton is around 7,000. So it's quite high, because I mean when the supply is less, you know that the demand becomes high, the price also goes high.
Yes.
So when we look at the pill millet, as known also as mahangu, is that we are also experiencing very, very significant reduction in it, as it's a more a rain-fed crops that is dependent on that. So I think that's more the situation where we are. And then in terms of now coming back to say, as Namibian Agronomic Board, as a custodian on behalf of government in terms of promoting production or market facilitation and so on, I think from our side, it's different folds that we are looking at through our board, and we will be, I think in the coming weeks, we will be providing an announcement of our significant contribution to that.
Right.
But I can just give briefly to say we are looking to see how do we ensure that our farmers' response, if it's a good rainfall years that is predicted to come or forecasted to in the coming season, what assistance are we going to provide in terms of seeds, in terms of fertilizer? Perhaps that's one of the roles we are considering, to say perhaps we need to provide some kind of subsidies also to join government to complement what government is providing in terms of drought, because it's a situation all of us needs to have a significant role. So at the same time, what we have done, which is more a long-term aspect, is that I mentioned earlier that we have a subdivision that is responsible for research and development. So we are busy implementing or conducting trials with the University of Namibia on seed research and seed production. The reason is because we would like to start producing seeds that are, or varieties and cultivar that are well adapted and resilient within our prevailing climatic condition.
Right.
So that is also part of our contribution as NAB, to say how do we prepare our farmers, what kind of seeds and varieties they would need to use, so that it's, even if we receive less rainfall as a result of climate change, climate variability, at least we are still be able to get something that is resilient within the condition that.
Right. Now, Doctor, the Namibian Agronomic Board as a regulatory body, how do you ensure that the local produce, the local farmers have both access to the domestic and international markets, and are they indeed in compliance to the food safety measures? Whilst at it, what are the current frameworks in place and requirements to access this market for the farmers?
Thank you. As indicated early, that one of our strategic themes is focused on regulatory framework. So as Namibian Agronomic Board, we developed what we call the Namibia Food Control System or framework. Now that is in different folds to assist us now to implement our regulatory services and provide guidance, inspection, and so on. So out of this Namibia Food Control Framework, we develop rules and regulation that is governing imports. We develop rules regulation that is governing local production, for export, for in-transit. Now, when we have done that, the other aspect is that we have our inspectors that needs to be conducting these inspection services, providing inspection services for different farms, for the different products that is destined for local market and for the export market.
Right.
So what we have done, and what we normally do regularly on a year basis, every different season, is that, for example, when we are into harvesting season of the table grapes, the dates, the blueberries, citrus, that is more heavily, the aim of that is more for export, then we have our inspectors to go conduct these compliance inspection services aligned to the different crop-specific marketing standards that I mentioned earlier, to say for you to export, you need your products need to conform or to comply to these different standards. So we provide that services by clearing these products and say they are fit to go for the international market or domestic markets. At the same time, in that process, we also do this sampling. We test and clear it from all those aspects. So now these standards and these services we are providing becomes an enabler to allow these products to have access to any markets globally, because then we know we certify them that they are fit for human consumption, they meet the required standards. So that is aligned to our vision, a world-class regulator of a vibrant, diversified, and sustainable crop industry. Because when we came up with that vision, we knew that we handle products that is destined for export market. We handle products that is coming from the global market, coming to Namibia. So that means we needed also to up our games. Now, number one, we needed to make sure that our inspectors are fully trained, accredited, and they meet all the required standards. And we have invested heavily, significantly on training of our inspectors. We have a competent team that is able to provide that services. The second part is that in terms of local production, we also noticed that to comply to global gap or local gap or good agriculture practices, we need farmers to be trained, especially our small-scale farmers.
Absolutely.
So what we did is that we ran an expression of interest request, say, any independent consultants within Namibia that would like to be trained or to be accredited as a global gap trainer, training of trainer. Then I think we received quite a number, and then we brought the expert to train these consultants so that they can go out there and train our farmers in terms of how to comply to good agriculture practices and so on. So we have 12 to 13, if not mistaken, qualified independent consultants that we have trained, and we funded that as Namibian Agronomic Board, because we can't be in this journey that we only want to be inspecting what goes out, but then we don't have the training expert that needs to provide the training to the farmers, because we can't be the referee and the player. So that's how we differentiated this and that investment. So that broader perspective of providing that services as a regulatory arm, it means now, for example, when in the last marketing season of the table grapes, we inspected almost 9.3 million cartons that are 4.5 kg that went for export. And this number is keeping increasing as we see more and more investment into our table grape production and so on. So that means we are more involved on the ground to make sure that we enable the environment for all what is locally produced to go for export. Now, what we have seen as part of this enabler after we have started implementing it as well is that we have seen significant increase of the export. Currently, it's I think we have seen almost the last marketing and current marketing, we have seen almost 19% increase, which is currently stand that our export is 1.7 billion Namibian dollars. And then compared to where we are coming from, it was around 800 million Namibian dollars, but you can see over the last 5 years, the significant increase is very, very commendable, and I think that's what we need to up our games as well as the industry is growing. We have seen now the new products that has come on board, which is the blueberries, Significantly, most of the 95% goes for export.
Export.
Similarly, the citrus, which is the oranges, the lemons, are also being produced and it's destined for export. So we have quite a number
Indeed.
of tasks that is lying ahead for us to provide these services.
Absolutely. Namibia, you are still tuned into the Public Enterprises Information Sharing Session. We are coming to you live from the Government Information Center here in the capital. And as earlier mentioned, I am joined in the studio by Dr. Fidelis Mwazi. He's here to discuss and unpack Namibia's quest for green economy. You can be part of this conversation by following the discussions on our social media platforms. On Facebook, we are live at Ministry of Information and Communications Technology. Alternatively, you can also stream us live on our YouTube channel, and our handle there is MICT Namibia. And be part of the conversation. This is quite critical as we all at some point, not at some point, on a daily basis, we all consume food. So it is quite a very important topic of discussion. Now, Doctor, the Namibia Agronomic Board has signed the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with UNAM and AVGRO. Could you kindly highlight to us on the progress and what has been achieved so far with such collaborations?
Thank you very much. I think with regard to this MOU with UNAM or the University of Namibia and the AVGRO, when we started with the initiative, we thought to say, yes, we would like to advance the development of the crop industry, but then we needed to collaborate with different organizations. And one of them that came on board was the University of Namibia, especially when we started on the seed research and seed production, because we needed to tap from their professional expertise within this, the seed production and seed research. Now, we implemented this over the years, and then we have seen some quite success story. We implemented on white maize, peel millet, potatoes, and wheat. And we managed to select the different varieties and cultivar that is doing very well, that could do very well in Namibia in terms of at a large scale. So at the stage where we are busy now at a bulking stage where we need now to test at a larger scale and see that these varieties and cultivar we have selected, how would they perform at a commercial aspect, so that we can already see that if they do very well, then we can able to move to the next stage of seed registration and certification, so that at least we can able to avail this at an affordable price to our producers to be using it in different seasons. So that's quite a very success stories out of it, what we have done with the Universities of Namibia. And we are still on the journey on that aspect, and soon I think we'll also be engaging the different stakeholders and media just to share how far we are in details, what we have done, where are we moving, when are we anticipating to start the seed production, and so on. Now, with the MOU with AVGRO, I think we signed that last year. And the aim of that was to do some trials and testing of the banana production, and we have started that as well. We will be testing or doing trials in all different production zones that we have identified that they are suitable, or the banana could do very well in such zones. So the implementation of that have started in the Zambezi region. It's Ngalamwe at Kongora area, where we have put up two varieties that we are busy testing with AVGRO of bananas under 1 hectare, just to see how they will perform. And the expectation of the first harvest is in 2025, which is next year, and we are hoping we'll get successful results. During the course of this year and next year as well, we are upscaling these trials to the other production zones in the Kavango, in the North Central, or the 4O regions coming to the Zonjupa, and then we just need to do this precaution of monitoring to say, are these areas suitable for us to do that? The lessons that we are busy learning from the trial that we are undertaking at Ngalamwe in the Zambezi region, at least we will address that so that it does not repeat into the other zones. But I think these are two significant MOU that we signed, and we are happy to say there's progress and success story that we are already are able to see as we progress into the implementation.
Okay. Now, Doctor, as earlier mentioned, we are live on our social media platforms. There is a question that came through from one of our viewers, Madina. They wanted to know who is qualified for the GAP training and certification.
So the GAP training is any farmer who is involved in the production qualifies for that.
Okay.
So we always also, when we do that call, we always announce in all the different production zones. I think the consultants that we normally use goes out in all the production zone or countrywide to provide that training services. So I think all the farmers, those are involved in farming, or those who would like to be part of that could just watch the media space so that they can able to see in terms of our programs where we will be providing that services of training. Now, from the aspect of qualifying to be a consultant, I think anyone who is more also involved, especially if those who graduated with agriculture or specialized in crop science, are eligible to apply and also engage the NAB, so that probably in our next round of training of trainers, they can also be considered to be part of such training program.
Okay. There is another question from our social media. It's Facebook. The question is from Hafunda. They want to know, does the Namibian Agronomic Board assist young farmers? And if yes, what assistance do they render?
Thank you. Now, that comes in to say, yes, we do provide that, but we work with different stakeholders. For example, young farmers who would like to get involved into the horticulture production, it will be more advisable to say they need to be registered with the National Association of Horticulture Producers, which is NAHOP. The reason being is that we always provide funding to NAHOP to assist small-scale farmers at large. In terms of training, we provide funds to NAHOP. We work hand in hand with them. Okay. So all small young farmers that are interested to enter into the space of producing horticulture products are welcome to contact NAHOP or even NAB, so that we can able to provide that guidance and so on.
Okay. So, Mr. Afunda, I hope you got the response to your answer. If you are an interested young farmer, you should just get in contact with NAOP or the Namibian Agronomic Board, and they will be happy to assist or guide you as to how you will go about getting assistance from them. Now, Doctor, earlier on you mentioned on the objectives of the Namibia Agronomic Board. And one of the strategic objectives is to enhance stakeholders' relations. What support does the Namibian Agronomic Board provide to unions, associations, and that represents the producers and traders, processors within the agronomic and horticultural sectors in the Namibian country? Yes.
Thank you. I think with regard to enhanced or stakeholder relationship with the Namibia Agronomic Board, is one of our, I would say, stronghold or backbone, whereby whatever we undertake to implement, we need to do consultative with our stakeholders. Now, as I mentioned, that the journey of agronomy, horticulture development, we cannot only achieve it as NAB by facilitating on that, especially taking into consideration that the NAB does not do the buying or selling of produce, but we are a regulatory service. We just facilitate the market, production, storage, and all these marketing through market regulation and so on. So what we have realized is that for us to do that, we need the stakeholders. So on a yearly basis, we always provide financial support to different unions, associations, and all these who represent that. It's in twofold to say, if for example, we have the NAHOP, which I mentioned earlier, which is a horticulture association for producers. Then we have the Agronomy Producers Association aligned with the NAU. We have the Namibia National Farmers Union, which is NNFU. We have the NGPA, which is for the processors, for the millers. We have a traders association, also those who are dealing with fresh produce. So all these are key stakeholders to us that we provide financial support. So on a yearly basis, NAB provides almost 4 million on our budget that we need to split to support these activities of this union and association. Apart from that, there are different levels or segment of the stakeholder engagement that we have a strategic policy making stakeholder engagement, then we have more the advisory part, and then we have consultative part. Despite that different level of segment of stakeholder engagement, our team of NAB, we are almost countrywide in different zones where we engage different farmers, traders all across the value chain in terms of disseminating information, in terms of alerting them, in terms of production, what are the critical products that can be produced that have access to the market. Global gap, as I mentioned, is part of all these kind of value chain to say we can't focus on production only by talking the language of that, but then we are neglecting the aspect of global gap or food safety and so on. So it's holistic that we look in terms of that. So one significant example I can give in terms of these bonding of association and union is the NAHOP one, because I think it has worked quite very well with us. Because when we conducted the trials for potatoes, what was at the back of our mind was that we had a lot of outcry from our small-scale farmers that it's difficult to have access to quality seeds or seedlings. Then when we did these trials, which we got seedlings from France, and then we brought them in, we tried, we saw the success stories. Then we engaged with NAHOP and said, but how do we now enable this for our small-scale farmers to have access to that? And then NAHOP came on board and say, through NAHOP, then we, in terms of financial provision, farmers are putting up their orders through NAHOP. NAHOP then put up that order to get these seedlings from France collectively, different container, 1 or 2, 3 containers as they want for the seedlings. It's imported into the country, then they come and distribute. So that already we have seen significant production of potatoes from small-scale farmers, because the reason for that is also that we would like to mainstream small-scale farmers to be key role players in the economy, not only to be on the sideline. So that success story, we would like to replicate and upscale it to various crops, to various different segments of our stakeholders.
That was quite a mouthful, but we've learned so much from this conversation, Doctor. We have slowly come to the end of our discussion today, but I see we do have the media in the house. Do you have any questions? Is there any? Okay. I see no questions from the media. Doctor, maybe just your final thoughts then in the future plans for the Namibian crop industry.
Thank you very much. I think my final thought is that the NAB is available to assist where we can within the crop value chain. And our aspiration of the crop industry is that in the next 5 years or 10 years, we would like to see this quest for a green economy flourish sustainably by taking into consideration the 3 pillars of sustainability, which is the economy, environment, and social. But now, in terms of the bigger picture of our future plans, is that we will soon also be engaging stakeholders. We finalize our crop value chain strategy because we would like that strategy to outline which crops can grow where and when, by whom in Namibia, in terms of land suitability. Then we can able to say in the next 5 to 10 years, these are the gaps that we are going to close. These are the products that we intend to drive for export market. And by doing that, I think we'll be happy to facilitate that process and also invite different investment opportunity, because I think we have the land, we have water, enable the environment, peace and stability.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for having me
All
in
right.
the studio.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor, for availing yourself away from your busy schedule. I do know that you are one busy individual. Thank you so much for availing yourself and to enlighten the Namibian population, or especially those that are interested in farming, to come to and approach NAB for assistance in when whatever is necessary as far as farming is concerned. We've had questions from the social media, and I'm sure those that were listening will soon approach the Namibian Agronomic Board. Thank you so much for availing yourself.
Thank you.
And Namibia, that is all the time we had for today's discussion. Join us again next time when we have another fruitful discussion here. From myself, Hileni Felapo-Samunyela, and the entire GIC production crew, until next time, take care.